Hello, Config. We are members of the design team at NBC News Digital. I am Ethan Byun, the interaction designer that worked on the big board, which is an interactive touchscreen used by on-air talent to help show election results on broadcast.
Hi, I'm Kriss Chaumont, and I designed the results pages. I've been working on elections for over 20 years, and this was by far the most interesting.
And hi, I'm Natalie Kuehn. I was the product design lead for the 2020 US elections. And we wanted to give you some insight into how we collaborated and brought the elections to life through our products at NBC News. So it may surprise you that election design as we know it is newer than you may think. The first live electoral map didn't appear on broadcast until the 1970s and on NBC News in 1976. But something was different about the map. Republican results were shown in blue and Democrat results were shown in red. For years, broadcast networks independently decided what colors to use to show results. The universal design language where Republicans are shown in red and Democrats are shown in blue, and normally winners are called with a check mark, didn't really become a norm until about 2000. And there is so much more to election design than just that teams like us have to decide every election cycle. Now, there are also so many more platforms to account for as well. Historically at NBC News, there have been separate teams and separate design systems. But on election day, how do you actually stay up to date on results and news? It actually looks more like this, right? You might wake up and check the app, read an article at work, hear results on TV. And by election night, when results are rolling in, you may be doing all of this at once. So we knew to give a clear and consistent picture to our audience of the election, we need to collaborate across platforms like never before. And we're just one of many teams that need to come together to make elections possible. All of our teams with different processes have to find ways to collaborate to bring elections to life. Also, the world is watching on election day. Traffic is high. Millions of people are depending on us to provide fast, accurate results. So we have a responsibility to prioritize clarity. And unlike many other product design initiatives, we have to build experiences for every phase of the election, building up to the election, and our deadline is completely immovable. As much as we may want to push back to launch one more piece, we can't. The election is coming. So every project that our product design team is working on has to come together by election day. Also, this year, we had to find ways to collaborate on this time-sensitive project, all while working from home. So let's jump into the kickoff and set expectations. For us, coming together didn't mean make everything the same. There are distinct needs for distinct platforms. So on web and apps, for instance, we had to build out pages that would evolve over the election cycle as the story changed, as well as a whole ecosystem that would evolve as well, optimizing for exploration since our audience could enter at any page.
Before we get to the big board, I just want to explain what it is for those that may not know. The big board is an interactive touchscreen that Steve Kornacki uses to display results for the election. If you don't know about our khaki-wearing chartthrob/map daddy, perhaps these tweets will give you a better idea. Kornacki hashtags started trending thanks in part to all the love he got from Leslie Jones, and Steve Kornacki became a cultural phenomenon. Now, if you can get past the eye candy that is Steve Kornacki, the big board used an architecture that supported deep dives originating from one centralized jumping off point for quick interactive spots on air. One thing to note, this was the first time a product for broadcast was done by the News Digital team. And you can see the impact here on the Senate horseshoe, where we came together and found a common thread with colors, shapes, patterns, and language. When TV graphics went bold in 3D, the big board used flat alternatives so it would work as an interactive screen. Digital followed suit while adding hover states. If someone was catching up on the election online, they could easily follow along with what they were seeing on air. The colors and overall shape were consistent, and the big board served as a visual bridge as both a broadcast and digital tool. We also used Figma to share our research. Within our elections design team, we created Figma files of the competitive landscape so that it was easily shareable and accessible to any member of the team. We also created presentation templates for internal reviews. We used easily shareable presentations, which helped us get early buy-in from stakeholders. And we created annotated files for developers and set up Groom sessions to run through the designs and explain special cases. This helped speed up the building process, reduce the back and forth, and eliminated surprise scenarios.
So Primaries for us really started with colors. The goal was to export tokens for developers to use. And so we created an election-specific palette that was calibrated around the logo colors. But when we tried to share it with other teams, we realized that they were using already colors that they felt pretty strongly about. So we ended up including those colors into our palette and came up with a final election color palette that every team was willing to use. And that was a great start for collaboration. And around accessibility, we were aiming for a minimum of AA for readability. And we also played with contrast and saturation for all colors to account for all types of color blindness. So primaries are very different because we have a lot of candidates from the same parties all running against each other. And so we had to figure out how to solve for that on digital because we're always showing all those candidates at the same time. So we do a lot of user testing. That's part of our core process. But for the first time, we did it in conjunction with broadcast. And so we tested with users on devices and on televisions. And we ended up shifting from a duotone plus gray palette to a multicolor palette. And so again, that was a great opportunity to strengthen collaboration between teams. And user testing is something that we champion on digital. And for the first time, we were able to impact digital broadcast at the same time. But unfortunately, those maps are very interesting for a little bit, but then they become fairly duotone, as you see here. And they can become very ugly as candidates drop out of the race from week to week. So we had to create a master Google sheet with color order that we kept on tweaking throughout the primary season, just to make sure that those maps are still visually appealing, but also consistent across platforms. And to align digital and broadcast even more, we did a lot of compromises around shapes, around fonts, around hierarchy, visual hierarchy, and even information density. And primaries last for about 7 months. And big days like Super Tuesday have over 15 states voting all at once. So those are really big events for us. And all departments are getting together and have to collaborate because we have a live event on TV and on the web. We have also live video, a live blog, live results, and reporting happening all at the same time. And then we also have to post timely posts on social. And Super Tuesdays are not the only big days because we have a lot of key states that have a lot of delegates at stake that are all voting on days where other big states are also voting. So we have a lot of big days like that. And as the delegates are getting allocated, our delegate tracker becomes more and more interesting. And then candidates start dropping out of the race. Delegates get reallocated, and ultimately winners are called.
And we track delegates on the big board. A quick fun fact here, while colors were made to be consistent across our platforms, an added consideration for the big board was that the broadcast and the board itself was color corrected before every show. One of the limitations of showing on-air graphics was we couldn't show pure white as it's too intense for television. And on Super Tuesday, we had Steve Kornacki manning the big board. Steve and other on-air talents were also able to game out different scenarios by allocating delegates. Which brings us to building context. Between the primaries and the general election, the public was researching and trying to gain better context going into the election. This year, there were a lot of stories to tell, and we worked across platforms to deliver this information. On the big board, to help build that context, we showed polls. While the visuals provided an overview, the on-air talent gave even more context about the data.
And since Apple was about to release their OS 14 widgets, we produced a couple of them, including a select daily poll that users now had at their fingertips. And during the year, our data graphics team works on data visualization and data analysis, both for articles and special projects. But for the elections, they build a lot of really cool tools, including a Plan Your Vote tool that helps people know how to vote in their state. And that team was very helpful to us because we were able to leverage their data expertise and put some of our experiences to life. So they helped us with data around polling so that we were able to create interactive charts like this one, where every single piece of data actually links to trusted polling sources. And we were able to use spark lines to show trends for all of those trusted sources over time for every state. We're also able to tap into their exit poll data to show trends over time, voting trends over time, both for state and national. And since the pandemic and unemployment also affected voters, we were able to track that as well. And we're really thankful to our dev team for pulling off those spark lines this year.
And with COVID and the pandemic, we knew it would impact when people actually chose to vote. So we knew we needed to build an experience that tracked early voting. So on web, we created an interactive tool where you could see how different demographics were voting when they were voting by each state and how that compared to elections past. With more help from the data graphics team, other designers on our team, and our app engineers, we extended the tracker to our custom iOS home screen widgets, giving users a snapshot and another entry point into our app. Well, on air, talent were able to speak to the data and provide more context there.
We built the Road to 270 feature where Steve could game out different scenarios for the candidates to reach 270 electoral votes. And thanks to our data graphics team, we had a similar interactive map for the web. We also allowed the on-air talent to drag and drop states and give them to a candidate.
So as we get to election, close to election day, we need to make sure that all of the teams are on the same page, and we need to make sure that all of our systems are ready to receive data. And we do have rehearsals every week with data flowing just as if it would on election day. And in the past, those were the only opportunities for us to QA our designs and check for extremes or maybe unplanned scenarios. But this year, one of our amazing developer, Sam Swartz, hooked us up with Storybook. And Storybook is an open source tool for developing UI components in isolation. So a developer can create a component very quickly and assign knobs and switches and editable fields. And then anybody in the organization can preview this live component and QA it across all breakpoints and through all of the extremes that components can have, and all of the permutations that it can also have. This was a lifesaver for us because we never felt like we were waiting for data. And social presence is huge for us, and every second counts, and accuracy is a must. And in the past, we were creating those social results cards by hand. I've created thousands. Even in the 2000 midterms, we had just started using Figma, and I still remember all of the designers working on the same Figma file and scrambling to get those ready as the calls were made. And I still remember being amazed seeing all of those cursors just going around and getting it done. But this year, a lot of departments got together to pull off a social card generator that instantly created those cards as soon as the data came in and a call was made, and almost instantly posted it on social media. That worked flawlessly for us, and it made a huge difference.
We also have to work really closely with the decision desk who makes the calls for NBC News to make sure we've accounted for any possible status call, like too early or too close to call, so that our audience knows exactly what the status of the race is. We also have to account for any possible outcome, like a runoff race or split electoral votes in a state. No matter how unlikely an edge case is to happen on election day, we have to be prepared for it and make sure our system supports it. We also user test our designs throughout this process, and by this time, anything that's live on our site has been tested. However, we want to make sure that on election day, our whole system works well together. So we worked hand in hand with our research team to user test our election day experience. And not everything gets built. Our final deadline is here. We work with product and engineering to prioritize any last projects that will most benefit the audience. And in the final days, we make sure to make whatever we have built the best experience it can be. And then our pages are ready for results.
As we waited with bated breath for results to start coming in, we added a countdown timer to torture ourselves. Torture our viewers. Let our viewers know when they can expect results. Because we don't show zeros on broadcast, we had Mapbox at the ready to show different stats with various data visualizations as the numbers came in.
Election day is here, the high stakes day where all eyes are on our work, both internally in the organization and across the country and the globe. We've spent months and months working towards this day. All the pieces have to come together when the data starts rolling in. We've prepared and tested, but there's nothing like the adrenaline across all our teams on election day waiting to see, did the checkmark work? When calls are made and data comes in is when all our work really comes to life. And beyond all the work we did preparing for results, we've spent months coordinating with our newsroom about all the ways the day can play out, making sure they have the layouts they need to put the right stories in front of our audience as the night progresses, and as live blogs are published, live video launches, or as results become center stage. We coordinated across NBC News, MSNBC, Today, our local NBC News stations, to provide a live results marquee that's modular and can be updated as there are new results we need to highlight and show. Our iOS widget transformed on election day to give you a live snapshot of results with click areas to get you to the full result pages within our apps. The modular home screen on the big board came to life, switching from countdown to live results to showing winner calls. We created scorecards that could track swing states. They could narrow in on the final races to watch, and they had flexible placement in the site and on the app. We had map embeds that could move across the site, designed to work on more than one site and in the app. But our maps really came to life and shown when they were with the details that our audience needed on the results pages.
On the big board at national level, we showed the presidential results, as well as the balance of power in the Senate, House, and governor's races, and showed presidential results at the state level, as well as down ballot races. For a more detailed view of the data, we allowed the talent to filter certain locations, as well as view all the stats we tracked with distinct data visualizations.
And it's not over on election day because we might not have the final results yet. And we have extremely important runoffs and special elections for months. And we still need to provide context to our user as to what the state of the race is. So on results pages, we added an estimated remaining vote so that users can gauge just how far along the race is.
And we did the same on the big board by showing the expected vote drawer to track the estimated remaining vote. We also displayed the percent of remaining votes needed for each candidate to win the state. We added a feature to our Road to 270 to game out different paths to 270, where the talent was able to show the remaining paths available with the actual results and allocate electoral votes to either candidate.
And after all the anticipation and nights with little sleep, when enough results were in for the decision desk to make the call, the checkmark worked. Now we're able to breathe again, sleep again, and reflect on all that we were able to collectively accomplish in an unprecedented year. And also reflect on lessons we've learned over the course of the election season that could be applied to any project. First, use deadlines to fuel innovation. Instead of jumping straight into to-dos when you're faced with a high-pressure deadline, spend time up front to consider how you can build new processes that make your work more efficient. And allow yourself time for divergent exploration. A hard deadline can force you to find creative solutions. We made huge strides here, and we want to push even further for the next election. Next, build pathways to collaboration. Knock on doors of teams you've never worked with. Bring the experts into your process and build up your knowledge base. Find tools that allow you to collaborate. By working with teams across the organization, we had a better understanding of the nuances of the election, and it led to better products. And finally, frame your systems around your audience. Have loyalty to people over platforms. Our products provide a service, so we need to question and reinvent any structures that weren't putting the audience first. We made a lot of progress, and there's always next time. Thank you all.
Thank you.